wanted to start with the outlook. And I do want to say, for those of you who are attending this session for career readiness points, at the end, we will be running a usage report, and that's how we'll award those points. So if you're hanging out here for career readiness points, we're still glad you're joining us. Please do stick around to the end. So let's talk about, the outlook for the future of jobs. So we know there's a lot of uncertainty, and that's, probably the biggest thing we know. So as of now, there's 30 more million people who have claimed unemployment, but there's hope. We believe that we've hit the peak of, and when I say we, economists, not Alex and I, that we've hit the peak of unemployment. So hopefully that number shouldn't be rising at this point. It should be staying steady for a little bit and then eventually starting to decrease. When we think about the future of jobs, we use the phrase hope grounded in realism. So that means we want everyone to be still thinking about what their initial plans might be, but with the perception that we might have to pivot a little bit temporarily while the economy is figuring itself out. We also want to keep in mind that COVID is changing what the economy is going to look like. So you'll see there 85% of the jobs in 2030 haven't even been invented yet. Things are constantly evolving. And whenever there's something, like a global pandemic or any large event, there's going to become new jobs that we maybe haven't even thought of already. Another thing to keep in mind is since 2005 to the start of COVID, 115, that's not right. 15% of companies, since COVID, over all companies, sorry, I can't read today, have been using remote work. So what that means is that geographic barriers for a job seeker might not be as relevant. I will say there's some particular companies, I don't know if anyone follows tech companies, but there are some such as like Facebook now, who is looking at adjusting people's salaries based on where they choose to live, because they had some of their coworkers who are leaving the Silicon Valley and moving to Nebraska to work. And obviously the cost of living is different there. So we'll see how that plays out in the future. When we think of industries and what industries we might want to be taking a look at. So e-commerce is an industry that's thriving at the moment. Particularly direct to consumer has been thriving. So when we think of that, digital marketing roles, tech roles, digital products, customer experience, and digital and social media are all roles that are expanding and we're seeing postings on. In addition, tech, digital healthcare, and esports are also growing rapidly. So other industries to consider. And we're seeing a trend towards comfort, right? I would argue that most of you are probably sitting in leggings or sweatpants or shorts due to the heat at home versus luxury items. So when you're thinking, maybe you wanted to work for Louis Vuitton, now do you want to work for Athleta or more of an athleisure company? And then convenience is also a trend that they predict will stay around. So people now are very used to their groceries being delivered via Instacart, and that's something once we're out of COVID-19, they plan to keep going.
Okay, so now
and then, yep.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, all those toolbars that Zoom has covered. Okay, so now here's the link to a survey.
And so this was a survey, and we realize it's from May 6th, so things might have changed since May 6th because they're ever changing. But this link, which we can send in follow-up, talks about what are the trends in industries. So, we encourage when you're thinking about a job search to explore maybe more industries than you originally thought you might be thinking about.
Yeah, so now the next slide. So from the same website, economicmodeling.com, and there's also a job posting dashboard. You can use this dashboard to search the current job posting trend and by location, by industry. And okay, it's still loading, looks like. Okay, by location, by occupation, company, job title. And so this is one of those tools I would put together to help you navigate the current labor market. And so if you find yourself, so continue to my next point. So if you're having tourism and hospitality industry in mind, that's your dream job. And after you're looking at all the research and the hiring trend, and maybe you realize that this may not be the best time to pursue a career in this industry. And don't be afraid to look outside your niche or dream job. And let me use an example. I remember one of those student workers in our office in the past, and her background is international relations, and originally she was working in a nonprofit organization, international organizations, and at one point she was looking for a temporary job because of the financial need. And through a staffing firm, she found a part-time accounting job, and because she had some prior bookkeeping experience through her nonprofit work. And that part-time accounting job evolved into a full-time job, and then she got promoted twice, became a project accountant. And now, if she decides she wants to go back to the nonprofit international organization, she will bring a lot more skill than what she had before. And in comparison, her husband, also in the same career track, her husband was more idealistic about the type of job and the organization he was going to pursue. And in comparison, her husband has not found nearly as many opportunities compared to the student worker. So I think that's one example that, especially in a challenging labor market, you may need to be a little bit more flexible. And when you're thinking about finding temporary work, and maybe use staffing agency, or maybe when you respond to a job board and it turns out to be a temporary to hire or contract position, this is not necessarily a setback. And because a lot of organizations, they prefer to hire new hires through contract roles, and maybe a year, maybe more. And once they decide that this new hire is a good fit, and that may evolve into a permanent role. And also, when you're thinking about job search, think about short-term versus long-term. And if you have to evaluate your own financial need, and if you have to pay your bill right away, and you really cannot wait, and maybe you need to come up with a short-term plan, and maybe in next 6 months, and being able to find a job to pay your bill, versus in 1 year, 2 years, how do you build skill and your network toward your dream job? And when you're in a job search, and if you see any job that you match 70 to 80% of the skill in the requirement, then apply anyway. But try not to apply to the job that you're really not interested in, and going through all the interviews just to try to see what kind of opportunities out there without sincerely giving any commitment, because that's going to burn bridges. Take advantage of skill building during this time, especially if you have not graduated yet. And there are a lot of software programs out there have a discount rate for student for educational purpose. And for example, like Adobe Photoshop or other design software, architecture software, and many of those software, they're available for student education edition for student with a fraction of the cost of the full professional edition. If you're thinking about using this time to gain some professional skill, and this may be the right time to do that. And last but not least, about 70% of jobs are filled by your network or referrals. This is according to the Business Insider. And so especially in a challenging economy, and beside applying to jobs through job board, think about how you can network your way towards your dream job or your dream organization. I'm going to show a little bit, I'm going to do a little bit demo about how to use our team platform and use LinkedIn to reach out to alumni mentors. And please remember that you're not in this alone. And not only your immediate family members, but your classmates, your friends, and we're all in this together. And stay together with your friends and share opportunity that may be relevant to each other's interests.
Just to follow up with something Alex said, you know, for skill building, a science professor recommended to me, if you're a science student, that most of the machines you use, so say you're using a spectrometer, that you can watch the videos on that equipment for free to learn more about that and how you might use it. Another great skill set is maybe learning a second language or increasing your second language proficiency. And that could be something, you know, using Duolingo or something like that. So even if it's not directly related to your skill field, what's some skill that you can be growing? All right. So some other things to keep in mind when we're thinking about job searching during COVID-19. So we want to be researching employers and industries that are in active hiring mode. So you'll see some different articles there, and Alex is going to pull up a link at the end on our career development website where you can see where you can access these. But we want to make sure that a position is recently posted. So when we say recent, we want the more recent, the better. But after that March 13th, March 15th timeframe, so when we're looking on job boards, we want to make sure that they're positions that have been posted since that day. Another thing that we want to be doing is conducting informational interviews. So if you're not familiar with what an informational interview is, it's when you're talking to someone in a position or a career or a company that you strive to be in. So Alex is going to pull up Team and LinkedIn and show you how you would go about finding people to connect with. But this is a conversation where you're asking, tell me about your educational background, tell me about your career path. What does a day in the life look like? What skills could I be working on this summer to better prepare myself for the position that you're in? People, everyone else is, sheltering in place as well, we hope. So people have time to give. So informational interviews, students have been having lots of success with during this time. When we're thinking of our documents, so if you're not familiar, the Career Development Center will help you with resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles. We want to add remote-friendly keywords to our things. So anything that shows that you've either worked remotely before, have the ability to work remotely, have the ability to work independently on projects, or have used technology such as Zoom or other platforms, we want to be adding those keywords in. We also, in addition to job boards and networking, want to be monitoring social media. So in a recent survey, 58% of recruiters said they're using social media. Now that includes LinkedIn, but also non-traditional job boards like Facebook and Instagram to help promote their brands and connect to talent. So if we're scrolling our phone, we could also be looking for jobs in addition to other movements that are happening on social media. And then we want to create a job hunting system for success. So, we want to create goals. So, a student I worked with yesterday, her and I were talking about, her best hour of the day is from 9 to 10 a.m. So every day from 9 to 10 a.m., she's going to do one thing that's moving her job search forward. It could be writing a cover letter. It could be finding a position to apply for. It might be reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, but she knows from 9 to 10 daily, that's what she's going to do. So whatever that system looks like for you, if you need an accountability partner, you can reach out to a career counselor in our office and talk about what that looks like. But we want to be systematic when we're thinking about job searching. And then we want to be open to taking a detour from plan A to engage in a parallel plan. So, I'm working with a recent student who just graduated in May, and her dream job is to work in the sports industry. So she sees herself in pro or college sports. Well, if the sports industry is temporarily on hold because people can't gather, so we can't play contact sports nor attend them. So we looked at industries that were booming. So she actually just ended up getting a position with project management is what she hopes to do in the sports field, but now she's doing it for the Red Cross. And those skills she's gaining are going to be transferable when the sports industry does open back up and have positions for her to apply to.
Thank you, Katie. And so one more thing I would like to add to the creating your job hunting system is build a system that can record your job search progress. When you're in the job market, especially if you're looking for a full-time job, please anticipate to apply to many, many jobs. And so let's look from the hiring manager's point of view. So I'm a hiring manager. If I have one job open in my office, and when I post that online or start hiring and spreading the word through my network, I can easily get more than 100 people applying. And so out of the 100 people applying, I may not respond to every single, actually, I will not respond to every single candidate. I may not even respond to some of the qualified candidates if I have way too many highly qualified candidates. And maybe 15 people out of 100 candidates, maybe 15 people will get a phone interview. Out of 15 phone interview, maybe 3 to 5 people will get a final interview. And out of 3 to 5 people, there will be one person fill the position. So reverse number. Even if you only apply to the job that you fully qualify, and you cannot anticipate the employer is going to respond to you every single time, and you will get interviewed every single time. So expect to apply to many, many different jobs. Maybe set a goal to apply to maybe 50, and every time you apply to a job and record that in your system, the job title, the organization name, the contact name, and the date of application, the current status. And so from time to time, you can review to see your current progress. And a lot of times I hear students tell me that I just started my job search. I applied to so many different jobs. I've never heard anything back. So when I ask them, so how many is so many? Do you remember? Usually they don't remember, and they may try to count with their fingers. 4, 5, 6. And but if you actually record your progress and set a goal, set the bar pretty high. I want to apply to 50 jobs I qualify for. I want to get maybe 8 to 10 phone interview and at least 2 to 3 final interview. That's when I can comfortably anticipate to have a job offer. That way you're less likely to get frustrated with short-term setback, or the job I just applied to yesterday and they have not called me back yet. And just look at your Excel sheet and you're supposed to fill that to line 100, well, sorry, line 50. And so that will help you to keep your mind on the overall progress. Katie, do you want to add anything to the system?
No, that's great. So I think most people tend to use a Google Sheet for that system because then they can access it anywhere. So if you're looking for a place, maybe try Google Sheets for your system.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, so now I'm going to show some actual resources that may be useful in job search right now. First of all, if you have not used Handshake before, I recommend give it a try. Handshake's the job board and the career center platform a lot of universities use, and we have them as our career service platform as well. And if you're not sure where to go to where to find it, and you can go to our website, sandiego.edu/careers. That will take you to the Career Development Center website. And you can start by making an appointment, or I think there's also a Handshake icon there. So you can, any of those links will lead you to Handshake. It's just a different landing page. And so now if I'm looking at job and internships search under Handshake, it will look like this for students. And by default, it will try to display the jobs that's related to your major, and it may be based on the keyword used before. And of course, you can always start a fresh search. So for example, if I'm looking for anything related to marketing, and I want to look for anything within 50 miles in San Diego, and I'm not looking for internships, I'm looking for full-time jobs, so I can set the filter full-time jobs. So there are 59 full-time jobs related to marketing in San Diego area. And especially during this time, you probably don't want to apply to the job that's posted 3 months ago, because currently 3 months is like a century old when it comes to job posting. And so I would recommend go to relevance. By default, it's relevance sorting, but you can sort the result by date posted. So now you will be able to prioritize the application based on the date posted. And so, well, this one from Qualcomm, staff system architect, consulting director. And so if I see anything that's interesting, look at this one. This was posted June 8th, just posted a few days ago. So pretty safe that this job is still available. And if I want to apply, no, I just need to use the document I already have in my in my Handshake profile to apply. And this is very straightforward. And if you get so many results, you don't want to look at every single result, you can add more filters. Paid only, and I think there are also other filters. I think it was blocked by the Zoom toolbar.
If you scroll down, I think
Scroll
it
down
helps.
a little bit. Yeah, so for international student, you may want to check accept OPT, CPT, and if you're interested in particular industry, you can add that as well. If you're looking for employers looking for a particular major, you can add that to your search as well. But I recommend doing your first try and try not to be too restrictive in your keyword and filter that, because that may filter out a lot of jobs that may be potentially good fit for you. And only if you see, okay, more than 60 jobs and you feel that's not very manageable, you want to narrow down a little bit and maybe you can set more filters. So this is pretty straightforward. And why do we recommend using Handshake first instead of like Monster or Career Builder? Because Handshake is a university platform, and the jobs posted here are mostly by the university, by the corporate campus recruiters, and they post job that's more relevant to college graduates' needs and interests. And also, especially if you're looking for local jobs, many of those jobs posted in San Diego area are posted by the recruiter contacts that we have been cultivating relationship. Many of those recruiters who post jobs are the same people who come to USD for career fairs and info sessions. And many of them are even alumni. And if you apply through this platform, I'm pretty confident that the likelihood you get a response will be better than apply through monster.com. So that's the first thing I would like to share is a Handshake platform. Now, besides applying to jobs online, and like Katie and I mentioned earlier, networking is very important. A lot of jobs are hired through professional connections. And it doesn't mean that those jobs are not posted for everyone to apply online. And however, if you already know people in the organization, if you have a chance to do informational interview with someone who's in the department you're applying to, that gives you great advantage, not only because you already have some face time with with a staff member in the department, but also they help you understand their culture, what they're looking for, and that puts you in such an advantageous point comparing to other candidates. So now a few very useful platform. First of all, let me show you LinkedIn first. I bet many of you probably are familiar with LinkedIn. And however, when I show students this page, a lot of times that the students answer is that, oh, I have a LinkedIn account and I don't necessarily use that a lot, but I've never heard about Alumni Page. So this is actually one of the most useful page on LinkedIn, is the alumni search function. So you will be able to find this through our website. I'm going to show you later as well. So now under this page, you'll be able to find LinkedIn members who on their profile mentioned they study at USD. So it can be alumni, could be current student, and you can search by geographic location. You can search by current employer. And if the current employer is not on the list, maybe you can add it. Okay, so this particular employer type house, we have 21 alumni work there. And so now if you want to further narrow down your search, and if you're particularly interested in somebody who's doing human resources, or maybe even college recruiters or talent acquisition people, you can sort by their job function. And you can also search for alumni study the same field of your study, because this way, for example, if I'm marketing major and I'm looking at the marketing alumni, and there's a good chance that we may share some common friend. Maybe we take classes from the same professor, and if I want to reach out to them, see there are LinkedIn profile, when their profile show up, it also shows how many common connections you have, how many shared connections you have. And if you want to reach out to any of the alumni, instead of just connect and invite directly, you can also consider asking one of the shared contact to introduce you first. I do recommend, if you want to reach out to any alumni through LinkedIn, particularly through LinkedIn, check with your shared connection to see if they can introduce you offline, because although LinkedIn is so popular, there's so many alumni have LinkedIn profiles you can look at, you can try to connect with, but many people don't actively check their LinkedIn messages. And even if they see the invitation message, sometimes they're not necessarily, they do not necessarily have the time to connect with students seeking mentorship. They may just quietly ignore your request. And however, if you find out that, oh, your favorite professor also is connected with his alumni, and you ask your favorite professor to do an introduction offline, and then it's much more likely this person will respond to you. That's particularly for LinkedIn. So some other things you can do for this page, and besides searching alumni based on current company and job function and what they study, you can also add a particular skill they add under their profile. So for example, if you're looking for somebody who particularly somebody who mentioned corporate social responsibility under their profile, now you'll be able to narrow down to 158 alumni. And last but not least, if you're particularly interested in looking for maybe a recent graduate, and you can set the starting and graduation date, help you to narrow down to your search. So this is a LinkedIn alumni search. And if you do want to reach out to someone, of course, if you have a common connection to introduce you first, that would be great. And if you cannot find any common connection, you try to connect with them directly. See, it's going to give you an option to add a note. I definitely recommend adding a note. So instead of default message, I would like to add you to my LinkedIn network. You can add a brief note. Hi, I find your profile through LinkedIn alumni search. I'm current senior, graduating senior, very interesting so-and-so field. I see you have experience in working in so-and-so job function. I think there's much I can learn from you. Is that possible for us to connect? And I think there's much I can, I think there's much we can discuss and learn from your experience in the industry. So give a very brief introduction in your note, so the potential contact know why you're interested in connecting with them. So this is LinkedIn. And the advantage of LinkedIn is that it's so popular, so you will see so many different profiles. Even if you cannot contact them or they do not respond, just by browsing all those profiles maybe related to your career interests. There's much to learn. What kind of skill did they gain when they're a student? What kind of internship did they do? And if they're really thriving in their current career, what's the first job they have after college? And how did their career progress? Even without actually connecting with them, you can find so much information just by browsing people's profile. And the disadvantages that, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people have LinkedIn profile, not every single one of them will respond to your request. So in comparison, our team platform, Toro Employer and the Alumni Mentoring, I think is a very good complement to LinkedIn, although they're very similar in nature. So right now, I'm going to the team platform Flash Mentoring, and those are the alumni mentor who volunteer to be in this database. So let me make a similar search if I'm looking for anybody, maybe doing marketing. Okay, so there are 289 alumni, that's exact match. And maybe you can add more filters. And for example, I'm only looking for somebody who's willing to network and do informational interview with me. So 142 exact match. And maybe I can add, maybe I want to look at marketing majors. Okay, so searching for alumni is very similar using this platform. And however, the advantage of using this platform is that all the alumni mentors featured in this platform, they volunteer to be in this database. So they expect students to reach out to them. And when you directly send them a message, they're not going to be surprised. How did you find out my information? And I don't want to be bothered. And they're not going to do that because they volunteer to be here. The expectation is that if I send her a message to request for advice or a meeting, and she's supposed to respond to me within 72 hours. So you can message those alumni mentors directly, And if you're not sure where to start, there's some email template you can use to get started. And some alumni also let you request a meeting directly. And but if you feel that you want to establish a little bit of communication first, you also have the option to send this person a message first. So compared to LinkedIn, like I mentioned earlier, this is a database that we only have alumni who volunteer to be here will show up. So right now there are about 3,000, I think, close to 3,000 alumni mentor. That's not nearly as large as LinkedIn user base, but because the alumni who show up here, they all volunteer to be here. So they anticipate to be contacted. So when it comes to the connection part, it'll be a lot easier than LinkedIn. And that's why I would recommend using both of them. Okay, networking. So we have this networking guide. Again, I'm going to show you where to find it on our website. So if you're new to networking, you're not quite sure that, okay, now I find an alumni through LinkedIn or through Team, and I really want to meet with them, and they work for the organization. That's really my dream organization. But how do I reach out to them? And how do I start the first step of building connection without coming across as being pushy, or what are some of the appropriate ways to initiate this contact? And like Katie mentioned earlier, doing informational interview will be a very great way to start your first step of connection with alumni mentors. And because when you're asking people to do informational interview with you, you're not asking them to give you a job. You're not asking them to vouch for you, to take your resume to their boss. And all you're asking is for them to share their knowledge and maybe spend 20 or 30 minutes of time. And if they like their job, if they like their career, and they'll probably flatter the current student, reach out to them, want to learn from them. And it's very, very common activities job seekers do. Even when you're not actively seeking jobs, people still do informational interviews all the time to build connections. So here's a networking guide, and specifically about doing informational interview. Oh, and before informational interviews, here are some LinkedIn messages. Like if you're trying to introduce yourself to a new contact, or asking a mutual contact, maybe a professor, to introduce you to alumni. Okay, so informational interview. Yes, we can share this PowerPoint after the presentation. Yeah, and also all the resources listed here, I'm also going to share where to find it on our website as well. Okay, so now here's the example about how to introduce yourself to a new contact if you want to do informational interview. The most important thing is to make your agenda clear. You would like to learn from them, and because you're interested in their company or interested in what they do, you would like to do an informational interview. And do not bring any hidden agenda. Here's a list of simple questions that typically discussed during the informational interview. And one of the most important things that after you establish the contact with the person you want to meet with, have a good conversation, always ask for more contact. And because at this time, after the end of the conversation, they get to know you a little bit, and you get to know them, you learn about the organization. And when you ask them to introduce you to someone else, connect you with someone else, there's already some context there, and you're not a stranger anymore. And in most cases, they'll be more than happy to give you one or two more contact. Just imagine that you find 3 alumni to get started, start your networking with maybe 3 alumni mentors, and every one of them give you 2 additional contact, and you follow up and get 2 more contact from each of them. And very quickly you'll meet so many people, and that's when you will start running into the opportunities that's not posted for everybody to apply to. And finding jobs through informational interview and networking, that's not going to happen overnight. You're very unlikely to get a job offer after you have a first informational interview. And however, if you continue to expand your network, and before long, you're going to hear hiring information, or they will tell you that, especially if you follow up with them, after the informational interview, send them a thank you card, and connect with them on LinkedIn, touch base with them from time to time, and your new contact will remember you. And if they hear anyone who's hiring and they remember, oh, this Alex from USD, I talked to a couple of weeks ago, maybe there's something he may be interested and for this opportunity to him. And you will hear a lot more job opportunities that's not posted for everyone to apply to. So here's a sample thank you note, how to follow up. Okay, so we have a question here. What advice do you have for teachers who are searching and applying for jobs during this time, especially distance learning going on? Okay, let me.
Melissa, hold that question for one more second, and then we'll make sure to touch it in a second.
Okay. Okay, so now, also career resources during COVID-19. So we, like I mentioned earlier, some of the specific resources we're sharing today, and there's a page we put together that's a collection of COVID-19 resources. And let me click on that. Actually, let me use this chance to show you where to find all those resources I shared in the last slide. So if you go to Career Development Center website, sandiego.edu/careers, and if you go to undergraduate student, followed by career resources, you will see the team networking guide and a LinkedIn. So if you go to, again, from Career Development Center page, COVID-19 updates, and scroll down to COVID-19 resources. This is a document we put together, actually Katie put together, with a lot of resources that we collected during this time. Some of those are articles or videos specifically talking about job search during COVID-19. Some of them are a little more generic about job search during a difficult job market. And now, second part is a list of companies that are hiring and not hiring. And for example, there are crowdsourced lists of jobs or internships that have been canceled, or people reporting that my company is still hiring. And also the economic model website, the dashboard I showed you earlier is also listed here. So this is about researching the job market and industry trend. Interview resources, how to do well in virtual interview, geographical job resources, courses on continuing education, and the more temporary like placement, staffing agencies, webinars, and so on. So we constantly update this this page. Okay. Okay, so next page, Katie.
So some other things are just resources as you think of your career development. So Alex said earlier, you know, you're not in this alone. So one thing to do is you can make a one-on-one appointment with a career counselor in our office, and you do that on Handshake, and we can come up with a strategy for you, help review your documents, talk about maybe industries you haven't considered, whatever place you are in the job search process. If you have a question and you don't think it warrants an appointment, you can certainly reach out to Alex or I individually, or we have an email address that you can email and ask quick questions, and our receptionist will field those as necessary to the correct person. We also have social media, so if you're a Facebook or Instagram person, you can check out our platforms there. And then we have a bunch of online resources. So Handshake and Team, Alex already mentioned. CareerShift is a general job database that the University of San Diego pays for a subscription to. So if you're someone who's currently looking on Monster, Indeed, all of those platforms, I would encourage you to maybe shift and try out CareerShift because it can help, it pulls jobs and opportunities from all of those sites to one location, and you can make an account and save all of your things. So when it comes to systems, CareerShift can be really helpful. Interview Stream allows you to practice interviewing, and it allows you to practice it in a virtual setting. So this can be a great tool as we think of things you can work on when you're home. You can practice your interviewing skills. You can also make an appointment for a mock interview with a career counselor if that's more your style. Road Trip Nation and Focus 2 help people explore different career paths. So you can either do self-assessments, watch videos about others who are in careers, or read documents about different careers. So if you're someone who's exploring maybe what an industry might look like, these are some great ones to check out. And then Inner Stride and Going Global have multi-purposes, but Inner Stride can be great if you're an international student looking to stay domestically, and Going Global also fits that population, but it also is useful to those who are domestic students who maybe want to move abroad. It'll give resources on, if you're thinking of applying to a job in Germany, what does a resume or an interview process look like in Germany compared to domestically here in the United States. So, and then the Career Development Center has more summer programming coming up, so you can see the whole list of programs on our website, but some do have an employer stepping in. So next week, you know, there's a bank, there's a session on breaking into marketing, there's a session on practicing your interviewing skills, there's a company who's talking about sales positions 2 weeks from now and going into finance. So check out the rest of our events, because there might be something throughout the summer that's an additional good fit for you. We have programming now through July. So that is all the content we have to share. As Alex and I, you know, mentioned, we will follow up with a bunch of the resources that we shared with you. We're both happy to take questions now if you have individual questions, or you can email us if asking offline is more your style. Melissa, I will follow up with you about your notes there. We have seen a lot of education positions posted actually on Handshake, but they tend, I believe, to be through non-traditional, so not maybe public schools, but more charter or private type schools. So that might be something to consider. But I will follow up with you, Melissa, via email so we can come up with a strategy together. Any questions for Alex and I? Perfect. Well, we appreciate you joining us today. Keep in mind, when it comes to job searching during a global pandemic, one step at a time. So one foot in front of the other, doing something that's going to move you forward. And the Career Development Center is here to support you. And Alex and I will hang around for a little bit. So if you have questions, feel free to stay on Zoom, and we're happy to answer those. Have a wonderful, what day, everyone? Thursday, everyone.
Thank you again for joining us today.
Do we need to fill out a form?
You shouldn't need to. Nope. So if you're looking for CRP points, check in 72 hours, and you should be able to see those on your portal. We'll run the attendance and usage list.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so here we have a question. How can we make our applications stand out when there are lots of applicants already? First of all, like I mentioned earlier, if you already know somebody in the hiring department in the organization, that will make you stand out. But sometimes you may not have the opportunity to build your connection prior to applying to a job. I would say make your application material very particularly geared toward the job you're applying to. Of course, your resume, your cover letter need to be flawless, need to be proofread and make sure there's no mistake. And also tailor your resume and the cover letter specifically for the job you're applying to. Resume-wise, you may want to make sure that your resume under your job description, under your skills, and you have the key skill that's matching the job you're applying to, because some organizations use application tracking system, and if they're looking for somebody with, for example, social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and they do not see that on your resume, they may screen you out automatically before the hiring manager even read it. So make sure your resume has a key skill that matches the job description. And your cover letter, even more importantly, when you send your application, make sure you write your cover letter very carefully, responding to the job posting. So what's the qualifications they're looking for? and what are the key skills they're looking for, and what's unique about their organization, their mission, their product, their service, their customers. And when you write your cover letter to this to apply to this position, if you show that you have done careful research about them, and you can demonstrate that how you're a good fit, how you match all the requirements they have, and that will make you a serious candidate even just after the first glance. Because a lot of candidates, when they apply to jobs, they send out generic cover letters, and if you send out cover letter that's very carefully tailored toward the job you're applying to, that helps you stand out right away. So those are just a couple of things you can do for any jobs.
Yes. If you make an appointment with either of us, we can take a look at your cover letters and give you tips and feedback. If you have a particular job that you are applying for or applied to, it's always useful to see the job posting with the cover letter, but happy to help with that.
Okay, recruiting companies. Like I mentioned earlier, under our COVID-19 page, we actually have a list of recruiting staffing agencies. So recruiting companies, first of all, if they want to charge you for their service, I would not recommend that. And generally, recruiting staffing companies, they get paid by the employers to fill the role that they're hiring, and they shouldn't be charging you for service. And so that's the first thing I will look into, is that whether they charge the job seekers for a fee. And you can also do a little bit. Your research online and about the reputation about different staffing companies to see their reviews. And the couple of links that we included in our COVID-19 page, those are lists from the San Diego Business Journal, the book of lists. And I would say at least those ones listed under that page are reputable ones.
And Sandra, if it's a particular recruiter who has a LinkedIn page, you could also look at their recommendations on LinkedIn and their connections and see if anyone else has written recommendations about successfully working with them as a recruiter. But recruiters certainly have a place. Just to Alex's comment, you might want to take a look at some on our COVID document, and then we almost never want to pay for that recruiting service.
And also, sometimes the recruiters may be a little bit hesitant to share detailed information about who they're recruiting from. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're running a scam. And sometimes they don't want you to contact the employees directly because they get paid to hire this job for the employer. That's why sometimes they hesitate to disclose too much information. That does not necessarily immediately put them into the shady recruiter pile. But like Katie said, that if you're not even approached by a recruiter, and you can always look them up on LinkedIn and see if they seem legitimate.
Any other questions for Alex or I today? Perfect. Well, have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.